Welcome to the solution video for the Soda Machine Project Planning Challenge. Let's get right over to not Visual Studio, but actually Excel today. So one of the very first things to note about starting a project is you should not start in Visual Studio. In fact, I encourage you not to start in any digital medium at all. Either use a notepad or a whiteboard or something like that. Get away from the computer. Otherwise, you're tempted to just see how that works. And before you know it, you're writing code, and that's not what you want to do for planning. Coding is after you have a plan in place. So for this, we're going to do it in Excel because it's very hard to show non-digital means of planning in a video. So I'm going to do Excel for this. We're going to start with features. So what does this app have? And we've got the instructions from the challenge, so you can just start typing out. I'm not going to put on the screen if you already have those, and you can download them and put on the screen yourself if you want, or print them out. But this way we keep our screen just for our actual planning. All right, so what features does our Soda Machine have? The first one I see is it's going to takes coins. So that's actually an important feature to note, because any more soda machines and snack machines and all these other vending machines, they can take touch pay or credit card or something like that, and so it kind of gets away from the concept of taking coins and making change, because of course it's more work on the side of the owner. It's actually more expensive for their use. So we are going to take coins in our soda machine. Part of that's because I want to have that concept of, well, what if you don't have exact change? What do you do? So it's going to take coins. So what else? Make your selection, which means you have multiple soda options. That may seem understood, but that may not always be the case. Maybe you have a Coke machine. That's all it does is it gives you Coke. In this case, we're going to have different options for our soda. And it's going to dispense the soda. Okay? Which also means it has an inventory of soda. Meaning we don't just invent soda. When you push the button, we don't somehow pull it out of the cloud magically. There's soda in the machine, which means there may be times when the machine is out of soda. Okay? So it's got a way to, has a way to indicate out of stock. Okay? And we're also going to keep track of that inventory. So we're going to track and know when we're out of stock and when we have stock in something. All right. We're going to keep track of change for users. What that means is, let's say you're in the United States and a soda costs 75 cents. And so you put in 1 quarter, because you can only put in 1 coin at a time. And so a quarter is 25 cents. So it's going to keep track of that. Tracks how much money a user puts in, so that when the user pushes the button for a soda, if they've only put 1 quarter in, we're not going to give them a soda. We're going to say, you still owe us 50 cents. We're going to put another quarter that process for doing this. We're going through steps 1 and 2 really right now, but we got to think through and talk through the idea of is what if there's soda of different value? So maybe it's got a 12-ounce soda and a 20-ounce soda, and maybe the 12-ounce soda is 50 cents and the 20-ounce soda is 75 cents. Are we going to do that or not? Well, typically soda machines, at least in the US, they distribute cans. And it's always the same size, and almost always it's the same price. But that's something you have to think through and note, because maybe it's a bottle machine and it has different types in there, and so it would have different prices. So you got to ask those questions and figure out what you're going to do. In our case, we're going to say that we only charge one price. So it's not individual pricing for each different type of soda or each different slot or option. Now, since this is a very small application, we're going to plan out our methods. This is the bonus challenge. So this is the primary challenge. This is the bonus challenge. And while we're pretty much done with the features, we might add 1 or 2 more as we go through the methods. And that's something that can be really helpful when you're planning out, okay, what are the steps in this process? It comes back to the features. Now, if you got a larger application where you're not developing individual method concepts and say, okay, this method will do this and so on, you can still do this process by walking through what the user is going to do. This can sometimes be called a user story. And it's the concept where you put yourselves in the shoes of a user and say, how would this user use our application, or in this case, our soda machine? So let's talk through, and as we talk through, we're going to create method names for conceptual method names. We're not going to have specific and lock this in. This is just more of a general method name idea. So let's start with a user walking up to this soda machine. Try and visualize in your head. What is the first thing the user does? Well, you're going to look at the series of buttons with the different options. These are the different types of soda that are available to the user. So maybe a method would be list types of soda. I won't put a parens, but list types of soda. Okay, so this is going to be a listing of, we've got Coke, we've got Diet Coke, and we've got Sprite maybe? I don't know. So those are the listings for the different soda types. And so the user decides they're going to choose to buy a Coke. And so they take some money out of their pocket and they put a coin in the coin slot. So this would be something like capture money, or how about coin inserted? Something like that. So this is coin inserted. And they're going to say I put a quarter in. All right. And then we're going to call that multiple times. We're going to put in a quarter, another quarter, maybe a dime and a nickel, something like that. And so they start putting money into the machine. Now at some point, they're going to hit the button for the Coke. But how do they know how much money to put in? Well, in the US, and I don't know if this is true across the rest of the world, but there's a couple different ways that this happens. One is the machine says at the very top, maybe in a label or something printed, or maybe a digital display, it will say, soda is $1 or soda is 75 cents. Or the other option is when you first walk up to the machine, you push the button for a Coke and the display tells you 75 cents. I think for our purposes, we're going to have a totally separate method that maybe it gets called at the beginning of the application running, or when the user requests it, that's going to be get soda price. All right, so that's a good method to have. Now we can have another one that is request soda. Let's spell that right. And what that's going to do is that's when the user pushes the button. So they put some money in, they've pushed the button, and it's going to do one of two things. Either it's going to give them a soda, or it's going to say, you are short this much money. So behind the scenes, that's doing a few things. It's going to check the inventory, make sure there's enough inventory for a Coke to be purchased. It's going to check the price versus the amount of money inserted to make sure that you can make the purchase. And then it's going to either distribute that, like take it out of inventory and give it to the user, or it's going to give them back a message saying, hey, you still owe us this much money, or hey, this is out of stock. Now, one of the things the user might do is they might say, oh, I thought it was 75 cents. It's $1. I don't have $1. What do I do? And so they might ask for a refund, where they push the button that says, give me my coins back. And so issue refund is another option. Now, one of the things that we haven't covered yet is the idea that as you put coins in, you're going to want to know how much money you have put in. It may be a mental challenge. Like you may be putting coins in, maybe you have a pocket full of nickels for whatever reason. A nickel is 5 cents in the US. So you start putting them in, and you're about, let's say 10 in, which would be 50 cents. You used to go to 75 cents, but you lose track. Am I on 10 or is the next one 10? And so that would be frustrating and confusing to the user. So there should be a way to maybe request how much money you've inserted. How about get inserted total? Okay, so get inserted total. That'd be the total amount of money that has been inserted. That's more clear. Get money inserted total. Now, there are some private methods behind these, but these are the public ones. So, for example, we talked about the idea of issuing soda. And that get change, well, the user's not going to ask for change directly. That's something that just happens. So when they request a soda, if they put $1 in and it's only 75 cents for a soda, part of the requesting soda is going to be issuing a 25-cent refund. So just note that there are some private methods behind here that will be called for things like issue refund. But we wouldn't want to, that would be different than issuing the refund to the user. How about issue full refund? This would be more of a partial refund because they overpaid. And that's a private method, not something that we need to include here. Now, right now, we have not talked the idea of taking anything but coins. But if they were to issue us or give us a bill, then maybe we should say that this should be a money inserted. Okay? So this would say, okay, they've given us money, whether it's a bill or a coin, we don't care. So I think that's all of the methods that this particular user would have interacted with. So we talked again about the idea that we're talking through a user's story. The idea that a user walks up to the machine, they look at what type of soda is available, they insert some money, they maybe see what the price is for the soda, they request a soda, or they ask for a refund of their money, and then they also see how much money they've inserted when they're inserting money. So that's the whole process from walking up to walking away with your change and your soda, or your refunded money since you didn't have enough money. Now, that's not the only user who's going to use our soda machine. And you may think, well, Tim, it seems like that would be all you ever do with a soda machine. But that's not true. This is where you got to take a step back and think about this. Someone else is going to use our soda machine in a totally different way. And who is that? Well, that's the person who maintains the soda machine. So a person who maintains a soda machine doesn't care about the list of soda necessarily, or inserting money, or getting soda prices, or they don't care about most of this stuff. Instead, what they care about is they're going to take money out of the machine. They're going to put inventory into the machine. So let's start with add to inventory. And then we'll also have empty change, empty money from machine. It's more clear. All right, so there's another use case. Person walks up. Now, in a physical machine, you'd have to unlock the machine, you'd have to open the machine. So there's a little bit more steps to it, but in our digital case, it's just we're going to add to the inventory and we're going to empty the money from the machine. Those are the two steps we're going to do. Now, we do have an assumption here, and that assumption is the change we give back to the users is somehow magically there. And I'm going to say that it kind of is. Let's just say that for now, it's going to pull from the change that's already been entered into the machine. And the reason why is because this could rapidly make this application more complicated to add in that concept of filling it up with change. Because you have to fill it up with quarters, with dimes, with nickels. Probably not pennies, because we probably wouldn't allow pennies to be added to the machine. But that seems a little more complicated, having that list of which items. But at the same time, it does feel a little incomplete if we don't have a way to say, this is where this quarter comes from that I'm giving you in change. Because let's just say we take a dollar bill in, and a soda is 75 cents. Well, the user didn't give us more change than necessary intentionally. Like they didn't say, okay, here's 4 quarters for a 3-quarter soda. They gave us a dollar bill. And so we have to give a quarter from somewhere. Because you have to give a quarter back to the user and say, okay, here is your change. So I do think that we're going to have to somehow track what coins we have in storage, essentially. Because typically what happens to these machines is when you insert money, it goes into a big kind of bin and it gets dumped in there. Well, that's not conducive for pulling coins out to give back to the user as change. So I think we do need to somehow track a loader or something where we have, okay, here is a roll of quarters, so that when the user needs change, here's some quarters you can give back. And we're going to have dimes and nickels as well. So a dime is 10 cents and a nickel is 5 cents. So with that combination, as long as you don't accept pennies, which you won't, then you can give back change for pretty much anything. So we're going to have a method that tells us when we're running low on or inventory of coins. So get coin inventory. Add to coin inventory. So if you have a coin inventory, then you have to add to it because it'll be subtracted from when a user requests a soda. Now the full refund, that's something totally different because what happens is it stores the money in a temporary holding place and then it gives it back to the user if they request it. So this raises up a couple of things. First of all, we have more features. First of all, takes coins and bills. And then we also have the idea of has a coin inventory for change. Now, one of the things that you might ask about is, well, what about if a user puts a $5 bill in? Well, typically you don't allow that. You only allow a bill that is slightly greater than or equal to the most expensive item in your list. So typically you wouldn't have $5 bills. Some would, but then in that case, what you'd do is you'd have probably coins that would give you your change back. So there are dollar coins in the US. So you'd have an inventory not just of dimes, nickels, and quarters. You'd also have dollar coins. And then they'd be used for change as well. But the max you'd allow is $5. So it's up to us how we do it. I think we'll just stick with the concept of $1 bills, and that's it. Now we do have this right here, tracks overall income. Where does that come into play in our methods? I think there's actually two different values we can be talking about here. One would be the overall income until you empty the machine. And then one is the overall as in since you started using the machine. So I think that get current income and then get total income with two other methods to add. And that would probably be for a third type of user, which is, it might be a person that's emptying, adding to inventory and emptying the machine, but more likely it's a third person that's viewing this remotely. They own, let's just say 10 different machines, and they're keeping track of how much each machine currently has in it and how much the total income is for that machine. Now, we could create a whole accounting system here where we subtract out how much each soda costs, and we have how much is currently tied up in the machine in an inventory for coins, and that has not yet been emptied, and all the rest. We're not going to go there at this point, but that's definitely possible to do in the future. So this does allow us some flexibility when it comes to how we work with our machine. But for right now, we're just going to be very, very simple and say this machine currently has this much money in it, and here's how much total this machine has made gross, as in without subtracting the costs associated with that machine. So I think that's it. I think that's all of the features and methods that we have. Now, I've probably forgotten something. I've probably missed something, and that's okay. I've gotten really close, though, I think. I've talked through the user story of the person who wants to buy a soda. I've talked through the story about the person who maintains the machine and also the person who owns the machine. So 3 different people, 3 different perspectives on the same machine and how each of them interacts with this machine. So with that, I think we're done with our challenge, both the primary challenge of creating a feature list and then the bonus challenge of identifying the methods that we'll need to operate this machine. And these are the public methods. There'll be a lot more private methods, a lot more things behind the scenes that we'll create. But these are the major entry points into our application from a user perspective. Okay? So I think that's it. Thanks for watching. And as always, I am Tim Corey.